Page 328 continued. Main characteristics and features of 20th century drama. Drama, which had suffered steep decline during the Victorian age, was revived with great gusto in the beginning of 20th century, and the course of 6 decades had witnessed many trends and currents in the 20th century drama. Realism. Realism is the most significant and outstanding quality of modern drama. The dramatists of early years of the 20th century were interested in naturalism and realism, and it was their endeavor to deal with real problems of life in a realistic technique in their plays. Quote, "The post-war generation of men and women started the demand for reality above all things stop. They demanded that dramatists should show them single quote life, comma, single quote unquote, as if living itself were not sufficiently intense for them. The theatre was not an escape for them, stop, unquote, para." It was Henrik Ibsen, the Norwegian dramatist, who popularized realism in modern drama. He dealt with the problem of real life in a realistic manner in his plays. His example was followed by Robertson, Jones, Pinero, Galsworthy, and Bernard Shaw in their plays. In the dramas of these realists, we get glimpses of real life with all its warts, warts, and sordid ugliness. They deal with problems of marriage, justice, law, administration, and strife between capital and labor, and use the theatre as a means for bringing about reforms in the conditions of society prevailing in their days. Para. Modern drama has developed the problem play, and there are many modern dramatists who have written a number of problem plays in our times. Shaw, Barker, Galsworthy are the writers who have given a spurt to problem plays. In their hands, the quote, problem play became a powerful and effective medium of social criticism and generally vindicated the right of the individual to shape his life and destiny, unfettered by the prejudices and conventions of society. It dramatized the conflict of ideas and social attitudes and upheld the principles of equality, freedom, and justice. The problem play was a new experiment in form and technique and dispensed with the conventional devices and expedients of the theatre, stop, unquote. Para. Drama of ideas. Modern drama is essentially a drama of ideas rather than action. The stage is employed by dramatists to give expression to certain ideas which they seek to propagate in society. The modern drama dealing with the problems of life has become far more intellectual than ever it was in the history of drama before the present age. Quote, with the treatment of actual life, the drama became more and more a drama of ideas, sometimes veiled in the main action, sometimes didactically act forth, stop, unquote. Romanticism. The earlier dramatists of the 20th century were realists of the core, but the passage of time brought in new trends in modern drama. Romanticism, which had been very dear to Elizabethan dramatists, found its way on modern drama, and it was mainly due to Sir J. M. Barrie, Barrie', effort that the new wave of Romanticism swept over modern drama for some years of the 20th century. Barrie kept aloof from sordid and squalid realities of life and made excursions into the world of romance, fantasy, magic, and supernaturalism in such plays as Mary Rose, Peter Pan, A Kiss for Cinderella, Admirable Crichton, Crichton, and Dear Brutus, have charmed his readers by the tender whimsicality of his imagination, and provided them an escape from the drab and dull realities of life. Poetic plays. Another reaction to realism and naturalism in drama was evinced in the popularization of poetic plays by a host of dramatists who have produced poetic plays in large numbers. T.S. Eliot espoused the cause of poetic plays against the realistic prose drama of the modern age. He stated, quote, "I believed that poetry is the natural and complete medium for drama, and the verse play is capable of something much more intense and exciting." Stop, unquote, page 329. Para. Among those who gave an impetus to poetic drama in our times, the names of Stephen Phillips, J.E. Flecker, John Drinkwater, John Masefield, W.B. Yeats, T.S. Eliot, and Christopher Fry are worthy of special mention. They have made poetic plays a force to reckon to within modern drama. Historical and biographical plays. Para. Another trend perceptible in modern drama is in the direction of using history and biography for dramatic treatment. There were many beautiful historical and biographical plays in modern dramatic literature. Shaw's Caesar and Cleopatra and St. John are historical plays of great importance. Irvine, Ervine, wrote The Lady of Belmont and popularized the old historical characters in Shakespeare's plays. John Drinkwater penned 4 historical plays: Abraham Lincoln 1918, Mary Stuart 1921-22, Oliver Cromwell 1922, and Robert Lee Lee 1923. In each one of these plays, there is a central dominating personality standing on a higher pedestal over the multiplicity of individually delineated characters. Clifford Bax wrote several historic plays, the chief of them being Mr. Pepys, Pepys 1930, Socrates 1930, The Venetian 1936, stop. Bax's effective treatment of character, his skillful wielding of material, and his delicate sense of style give prime distinction to his work. Para. Biography has been dexterously used in 2 prominent plays of our times: Barrett's of Wimpole Street by Rudolph Bezier and The Lady with a Lamp by Reginald Barclay. In the former play, biographical details about Robert Browning and Mrs. Elizabeth Barrett Browning form the texture of the play, while the latter play deals with the life and achievement of Florence Nightingale. The Irish movement, a new trend in modern drama, was introduced by the Irish dramatist who brought about the Celtic revival in literature. In the hands of the Irish dramatists like W.B. Yeats, J.M. Synge, Lennox Robinson, T.C. Murray, and Edward Martyn, Martyn, drama ceased to be realistic in character and became an expression of the hopes and aspirations of the Irish people from remote days to, quote, their own times. Stop. The imaginative idealism which has always characterized the Celtic races, the love of passionate and dreamy poetry which has exercised a fascination over the Irish mind, the belief in the fairy world which has been an article of faith in the Irish people have been represented in modern Irish drama. Stop. The object of the above stated Irish dramatists was, quote, not to make people think but to make them feel, to give them an emotional and spiritual uplifting such as they might experience at Mass in a cathedral or at the performance of a symphony. Stop, unquote. Impressionism. Impressionism constitutes another important feature of modern drama. In the impressionistic plays of W.B. Yeats, the main effort is in the direction of recreating the experience of the artist and his impressions about reality, rather than in presenting reality as it is. Impressionistic drama of the modern age seeks to suggest the impressions on the artist rather than to make an explicit statement about the objective characteristics of things or events. Expressionism. Expressionism, expressionism, is another important feature of modern drama. It marks an extreme reaction against naturalism. The movement, which had started early in Germany, made its way in English drama, and several modern dramatists like Sean O'Casey, C.K. Munro, H.E. Rubinstein, Rubinstein, J.B. Priestley, Elmer Rice, and Eugene O'Neill have made experiments in the expressionistic tendency in modern drama. Quote, Expressionist drama was concerned not with society but with man. It aimed at to offer subjective, psychological analysis, not so much of an individual as of a type, and it made much of the subconscious. For such a study, established dramatic forms and methods of expression were inadequate, and the expressionists threw overboard conventional structure in favor of an unrestricted freedom. Their dialogue was often cryptic and patterned, now verse, now prose, and was in every way as far removed from the naturalistic prose of the realist school as can well be imagined. Unquote. The comedy of manners. There is a revival of the comedy of manners in modern dramatic literature. Oscar Wilde, Noel Coward, and Somerset Maugham have done much to revive the comedy of wit in our days. The drama after the Second World War has not exhibited a love for comedy, and the social conditions of the period after the war are not very favorable for the blossoming of the artificial comedy of the Restoration Age. Quote, the comedy of manners is a tender plant and will not bloom if cold winds are blowing. Unquote. Page 330. Stage directions. In modern drama, there are elaborate stage directions. These stage directions considerably ease the work of dramatic production on the stage. One comes across elaborate stage directions in the plays of Galsworthy and Bernard Shaw. Technique. In modern drama, the three classical unities of time, place, and action are generally maintained. Dialogues in modern drama are short and transient. The lack of action is made up by T-I-N-A, I think it's a printing mistake, dialogues. Further, soliloquies, S-O-L-I-L-O-Q-U-I-S, and asides, A-S-I-D-E-S, have been completely avoided in modern drama. Para. Whatever confusion there may be, however, and whatever failure may occur, it is certain that the renaissance of English drama, heralded in the 90s of the last century, has not lost its vital force, and modern drama is a tremendous literary force in 20th century literature. Stephen Phillips, 1864-1915. But even before this, quote, renaissance of imagination, unquote, we find some dramatists writing verse drama in the early years of the 20th century. Of these dramatists, Stephen Phillips deserves the first mention. Paolo and Francesca was his greatest achievement, though he wrote some other verse plays also like Herod, Ulysses, the sin of David and Nero. His work is not original, for unlike T.S. Eliot, he does not try to subject an old traditional style to the needs of the modern age. Quote, he, unquote, comma, says Nicole, comma, quote, looks backward always and can think of nothing save the continuance of the worn-out 19th century styles based on uncritical admiration of the Elizabethans. Stop, unquote. Now that is just not sufficient. Phillips is a fossilized Elizabethan. In spite of their flamboyantly melodramatic elements and wooden characters, his plays dazzled his contemporaries, at least for a time, but could not succeed in creating an appreciable demand for poetic drama. His followers, nor did he found a tradition, though some dramatists like Rudolph Bessier, B-E-S-I-E-R, and J.E. Flecker, F-L-E-C-K-E-R, tended somewhat in his direction. Bessier's The Virgin Goddess is written much in the same style as Phillips' Stop. Flecker's Hassan, H-A-S-S-A-N, published in 1922 and staged in 1923, is different in the sense that it is related to the Middle East. It does capture much of the gorgeous splendor of the East, with its hedonistic lustfulness and grotesque sadism, but its characterization and incidents, mostly of the melodramatic kind, are quite crude and incapable of interesting the more discerning of readers and spectators. There is some really splendid poetry also, no doubt, but, to quote Allardyce Nicole, comma, it is, quote, a mere patchwork of heterogeneous elements without harmony and without form, stop, unquote. Edward Knockblock's K-N-O-C-K-B-L-O-C-K'(S), Kismet, K-I-S-M-E-T, is another Eastern phantasmagoria. John Masefield, M-A-S-C-F-I-E-L-D, 1878 to 1967. Masefield was not affected by the Middle East, but he was influenced a great deal, especially in his dramatic work, by the Japanese drama which was introduced in English for the first time in 1913. In the beginning, Masefield tried his hand at domestic and historical themes in such plays as The Tragedy of Nan, the prose play The Tragedy of Pompey the Great, and Philip the King, written in heroic couplets. Stop. The Japanese influence is perceptible first in The Faithful, 1915. His later plays, mostly on religious and historical themes, show an appreciable evidence of the Japanese influence. Good Friday, 1917, A King's Daughter, 1923, The Trial of Jesus, 1925, Tristan, T-H-R-I-S-T-R-A-N, and Isolde, 1927, and The Coming of Christ, 1928, are his important later plays. In them he skillfully combines prose and verse, and following the precedent of the ancient classical stage, introduces choral interludes. His language is well wrought but lucid. His Christianity is quite conventional and as such unacceptable to the moderns. But there is a childlike quality in his conception and presentation which cannot go unobserved and uncommended. John Drinkwater, 1882 to 1937. John Drinkwater is best known for his prose historical drama Abraham Lincoln, 1918, which secured for him international fame. But here we are concerned with his poetic dramas, which came only before 1918 and which include The Storm, 1915, The God of Quiet, 1916, and X = 0, Night of the Trojan War, 1917. These plays were not as popular as Abraham Lincoln and even his other historical dramas like Mary Stuart and Oliver Cromwell, page 331. But they helped to promote and preserve the vogue of poetic play. The storm is indeed very effective and puts one in mind of Singer's Riders to the Sea. A young woman is waiting fearfully for her husband who was being overtaken by a furious storm. Her mind, torn between hope and fear, comes to a settlement with the bringing in of the dead body of her husband. The play is meditative rather than expressive of action. The storm in the soul of the young woman going to be bereaved is its illegible importance than the physical storm raging outside her cottage. Her tragedy, which she takes with an agonized silence, is really pathetic and heartwarming. X equals to 0 attempts a smart exposure of the evils of war. Even the most expensive war yields no profit in the end. It comes to 0. Drinkwater has presented in the play an imaginary episode during the course of the Trojan friends and two Greek friends. At night, one of the Trojans' war. The chief characters of the play are four. Two Trojan leaves his friend behind to kill some Greek straggler, and likewise one of the Greeks goes to ambush some unwary Trojan. The Greek and the Trojan left behind happen to become the victims. It is discovered by the Greek and the Trojan assassins when they come back from their respective errands. Drinkwater, aware as he was of the tragedy of war, was not yet a pacifist as his Abraham Lincoln shows. Lincoln turned to war when things went out of hand, though he did so with a deep spiritual agony. Lascelles, Lascelles, Abercrombie, Abercrombie, 1881 to 1938. Abercrombie's verse plays like Degora, Degorah, 1913, The Adder, Adder, 1913, The End of the World, 1914, Staircase, 1920, The Deserter, 1922, and Phoenix, 1923, struck a note of departure from the fanciful and symbolical plays of Yeats. Abercrombie had nothing to do with the land of fairies or mysticism. He was a poet, no doubt, but he was also a realist. He took upon himself the task of adapting the blank verse of the Elizabethan age to the contingencies of the modern times. Referring to Abercrombie's work, Moody and Lovett maintain, quote, fundamentally, unquote, comma, Abercrombie endeavored to bring his poetry into close contact with reality. He was not another singer from fairyland as was Yeats. He deliberately departed from the Elizabethan tradition which kept so many writers of the past in its thraldom. Consciously, he sought to find a form of blank verse expression which might adequately convey to modern spectators or readers the immediate emotions of our times in terms of poetry. The powerful resonance of his verse, with its peculiar welding of highly imaginative language and common expressions, presents a notable contribution to dramatic form, unquote. Abercrombie's plays are poor in characterization and stage effects. Moreover, there is a sizable proportion of narrative which does not fit well into the dramatic framework. Anyway, Abercrombie scored an advance upon the unthinking Elizabethanism of Stephen Phillips by showing a much greater awareness of contemporary taste and conditions. Dr. Gordon Bottomley. Whereas Abercrombie tried to poetize ordinary speech and thus combine poetry with realism, Dr. Gordon Bottomley endeavored to make an altogether new start. In his search for a new poetic medium, he did not turn to the Elizabethans or their Victorian imitators, but the no drama of Japan and the classical drama of Greece. In his youth, Bottomley was an enthusiastic admirer of D.G. Rossetti, in whom he found, to quote himself, the lost Italian vision, the passionate vitality of art, more rich than life, more real than the day's reality, unquote. Later, however, his enthusiasm for aestheticism dwindled considerably. His plays can be roughly divided into two groups as follows. 1. The earlier group, and 2. The lyric choral plays. Para. What attracts our attention in the plays of the earlier group is the solidity of Bottomley's characterization and his pleasing inventiveness. These plays include some with Shakespearean themes such as King Lear's Wife and Gruach, which are extremely interesting. Gruach tries to show the background of Lady Macbeth and succeeds in convincing us psychologically. Para. In the choral plays, Bottomley further removed dramatic dialogues from common speech. His experiments are quite interesting, even though they could not excite much emulation. T.S. Eliot, 1888 to 1965. T.S. Eliot has been the greatest shaping force in the literature of the 20th century, in poetry, criticism, and drama. Page 332. Long before he came forward with a poetic play of his own, he had started defending poetic drama. In The Possibility of Poetic Drama, The Need for Poetic Drama, Aims of Poetic Drama, and Poetry and Drama, he strongly advocated the cause of poetic drama. At one point, comparing prose and verse as the media of drama, he conveyed his belief that, quote, poetry is the natural and complete medium of drama, that the prose play is a kind of abstraction capable of giving you only a part of what the theatre can give, and that the verse play is capable of something much more intense and exciting, stop, unquote. Para. But all this verbal pleading would have been of little avail if Eliot had not, with his own practice, proved the potentialities of poetic drama in the modern age. He wrote some 7 poetic plays which are, quote, Sweeney Agonistus, The Rock, Murder in the Cathedral, The Family Reunion, The Cocktail Party, The Confidential Clerk, The Elder Statesman. Of all of them, Murder in the Cathedral is the most outstanding. Bamber Gascoigne, Gascoigne, observes in 20th century drama, Cologne, quote, it is the highest tribute to poetic drama to say, as one can of Murder in the Cathedral, that it is both intensely dramatic and inconceivable in prose, stop, unquote. Eliot's plays are quite complex, like his poetry, but they are satisfying in their poetry and the evocation of the desired moods by a wonderful handling of the verse medium. Others. W. H. Auden, in collaboration with Christopher Isherwood, wrote some good poetic plays. The God Beneath the Skin, The Ascent of F6, and On the Frontier Miss Dorothy Sayers in The Zeal of Thy House, and The Devil to Pay followed T.S. Eliot's lead in handling religious subject matter. Stephen Spender with The Trial of a Judge came out with a powerful poetic play depicting the fate of liberals and socialists in the Nazi Germany of Hitler. This play, as Nicole points out, quote, despite its brilliance in execution, exhibits a burning emotion so consuming as to destroy that simple structure from which a stage play must be built. Stop unquote. Christopher Fry, in his poetic plays, imported some mystical suggestions and philosophical speculations. For this very purpose, he preferred verse to prose. His verse is quite suggestive, but is sometimes marred by a little immaturity and incomprehensibility. Consider an instance showing both his excellence and weakness. The world is an arrow or lark song, shot from the earth bow and falling in a stillborn sunrise, unquote. How to group the playwrights of recent years. English playwrights of the post-1950 period are too numerous and too individualistic to lend themselves to neat categorization in a few groups. The two obvious ways to attempt any categorization are, first, from the point of view of technique, and second, from that of theme and intention. But there is a troublesome problem. A playwright with a radical social manifesto may use a docile conventional technique, while another using revolutionary techniques may turn out to be a mealy-mouthed reformer, or even a status quoist. However, for the sake of convenience, and only for this reason, we may arrange the post-1950 English playwrights, PLAYWRIGHTS, in the following two categories. 1. Social protesters, generally influenced by Brecht, BRECHT, but not always. They can be further split into the following three subgroups. A. Angries, ANGRIES, of the 1950s. B. Those who were for social change but of a non-radical kind. C. Radical leftists, revolutionists, and anarchists. 2. Technical innovators influenced by the theatre of the absurd. Let us consider these groups/subgroups one by one.